So hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this 1 hour course, I would like to share with you how to build a REST API or RESTful API using Spring Boot and connect to a real database running on Docker and how to organize the right structure based on the entire layer. And the last one is apply the real use case to make application more efficient. If you like this video along the way, let's click on the subscribe button so that I can keep create other courses like this. Okay, I am super excited right now. Let's moving on and start building REST API within this course.
So, in reverse Hello World course, we are implemented just very simple Hello World API. Now, let's go to the next level by we will create a model is customer in this case and apply this model into the entire layer architecture in here to able perform the RESTful API where the client will send, get, post, put, and delete requests to our application and then let the request go through the controller, service, and also repository to interact with a real database with a Postgres running on Docker. Basically, this is how to build a Spring Boot application in the real world. Now, let's go ahead and create symbol class will represent customer model and start building the entire layer for our application. So within IntelliJ, the first thing I would like to do is simply create a new package and the name is customer. And then in the customer package, I would like to create a class customer. This will be our model in here. And now let's define some attribute for our customer. Private long ID, private string name. Then we also have email. And the last one is address. Next, let's generate the constructor. Okay, I will select on and then I would like to create another one. And in this time, we'll exclude the ID. I will explain why the nodes have the ID in the constructor later on. And the next thing I would like to do is generate getter and setter for all fields. And the last one is to string. Okay, cool. Now we have a fun view or setting for our customer. We had this all field, constructor, getter, setter, and to string method. The next thing I am going to do is open demo application here. Now we already have customer instead of string. I would like to change to customer and then one else and the name is Bob and the email is bob@gmail.com and the address will be US and the method name is get customer. Let's rerun the application again. So before we have Hello World API, if I reload the page, so you can see in here is return for us customer object display with the JSON body within the array in here. This is because in the REST controller it had the annotation is response body. So response body will auto convert our object to the JSON body. So this is awesome as you can see how easy to set up very simple customer API. So right here, we already have this customer class, and also we expose the customer API with GET request. Now let's apply our customer API into this controller layer to make the correct approach. But firstly, we will set up the controller layer. Then I will show you how easy to set up the service layer and also repository layer. Within IntelliJ, I want to close this, and under customer package, I would like to create a class is customer controller. Then the next thing I would like to do is move all of this and paste it into customer controller. And also we take rec controller in here and paste it in here. And one additional annotation I would like to add is request mapping in here. And I would like to have the path is API v1 customer. Okay, let's rerun again. In here, if I reload the page again, this should not work. And you can see the status is 404. And this is because in the customer controller, we add additional path of the request mapping is API v1 customers in here. Let's go back to browser and type API v1 customers. Okay, now we successfully create the customer controller to receive the API request. Next, go back to the diagram. So now we have our controller layer responsible for our API request. And instead of we put all things within this layer, the controller should talk to the service layer to do its job is handle business logic. And if this layer require get or modify some data, then it should also talk to repository layer for data asset. And overall, the client send the request to our API, then it will go to the service repository, and then it will go to the database and return the result back to the client is. And you can see the client send a request to our application like a life cycle in here. Next, let's go ahead and create our service layer to handle business logic. So within IntelliJ, under customer package, I also would like to create a class, and the class is customer service. Right now, go back to the customer controller. So what I am going to do is we will test this get customer method and paste it inside the customer service in here. Then go back to the controller, and this logic will be gone. Now to able make the controller talk to the service, we need to do is private final customer service, and then add it into the constructor. So we are using dependency injection in here. I will explain this concept later on. The next thing I would like to do is reference to customer service and then get customer method in here. So Now you can see is our code is much cleaner and better approach. In this service, we only have the business logic in create customer. Let's run again. So we have error in here. Application failed to start. And the description is the customer controller require a pin of customer service that could not be found. I understood this error because we are using dependency injection in here. And let me explain a little bit about dependency injection as we perform it because this concept is very important to understand when you building application using Swing and Spring Boot. So in here, we having a reference to customer service, then we pass it into the constructor. So as you see earlier, it would not work. But if I change to new customer service, if I remove the parameter in here and rerun again, go back to the browser and then I reload the page. So you can see here it's also work. But the thing is when you writing code uh, within Swing and Spring Boot, yeah, you should not writing code like this. That's a bad practice in here. We must use dependency when we have a chance to do. So for this case, let's add the customer service and then this customer service equal to customer service. So, but this is not done because in the back end, we need to tell Swing to understand this customer service is injected into this controller via the constructor. Let's go to the customer service and mark as in the class is service annotation here. And in this time, string will know this class is a bin object, and then string will instantiate and manage for us. Also, auto inject this bin to any place we reference to, and in this case is customer controller. Now, if I restart again, so you can see here we don't have any error again. Let's go back to the browser and reload the page. So you can see that it's also work for us. So now we actually perform this customer into this layer in here. And we have the customer controller already talk to the service successfully. And the last one we want to set up is repository layer in here. But before element, this layer, we need some job to do is set up a Postgres database running on Docker. And the second one is we need to add some dependency, which is Postgres CDBC driver and Swing Data CBA. And the third one, we need to set up the customer repository element CBA repository in here to perform the data asset in here. And the last one is the data source configuration from our application to provide the URL, username, and a password, and other as well to able connect to this database. And I will explain all of this in the second. Next, let's go one by one. But firstly, let's set up this Postgres database up and running. Within IntelliJ, the first thing I would like to do is create a file which is docker compose.yaml, and I need to provide the configuration in here. So, and in here, this is the configuration of running on Docker, and in services I have two service in here. The first one is Postgres and the second one is BC admin. For you don't know, Docker is I am in Docker official documentation, and Docker is open platform for developing, shipping, and running application. Docker enable you to separate your application from your infrastructure so you can deliver software quickly. So basically, the Docker do is instead of you install the Postgres or BZadmin or other software locally, you can use Docker and then you just only download the Docker image and then run Docker container so that you will have the software running very easy and very quick. And also Docker support multi-platform. You can run Docker on Windows, Linux or macOS. And in case you want to download Docker, I am in install Docker desktop on Windows page. And in here you can see Docker desktop for Windows. Click on it and then it will automatically install for you. Let's see the short overview of it. If you want to have a course specific on Docker, so just type the comment below on this video. Just for now, go back to the IntelliJ and basically in the Postgres service in here, I have the container name is Postgres and the image is Postgres and the version of it is 60.2 and I have two environment in here. The first one is user and the second one is password. And also I have the volume to store the data within Docker container and the box by default of Postgres running on Docker is 5432 for you. In the local machine, you can change this box wherever you want. So you can change it to 3 or 4, everything is fine. But for now, I would like to leave it default. And also I have the network in here and the restart policy is always. And the second service is BZadmin. The container name, the image is BZadmin 8.4 version. And also I have the environment in here, the volume as well. And the port is 5050. Also, I have the network and the restart policy. And I think this is all. So let's run Postgres on Docker container. And in here, I have a Docker tab. But in case you don't have, you can go to plugin and then you can search with Docker and select this checkbox in here and install. Then you will have a Docker login within IntelliJ. So for now, you can run from this one or you can run via terminal. So for me, I would like to run via terminal. Let's type docker compose up D for detach mode, enter. So now you can see the network is created for us. Also the volume and the important is the container busy admin and the Postgres is started. And the next thing I would like to do is I let type docker compose ps. And so in here I have two docker container is running. Let type docker compose log because I want to see the log from Postgres. And in here you can see is created database and you can see database system is ready to accept connection. Go back to the browser, then I would like to type localhost 5050. So now as you can see, we have the busy admin in here and you can see in the server, we don't have any server. Let's add new server in here and the name I would like is, and the name is NTLOC server and the connection in here, I would like to type Postgres. This is because we are running Postgres and basic admin within Docker container and it has the command thing is network. So you can see this is Postgres. in case you install the PC admin locally or Postgres, you need to type localhost in here. But for my case, you just type the PostgreSQL for the port is 5432. And in case your Docker compose file change to another port, for example 5433, then you need to adjust this one from 2 to 3 as well. But for now, let's stay with 2. And the username is ntloc and the password is password. Save. Okay, the master password is password. So you can see in here we have the ntloc server in here. So now you can see we already set up the Postgres database running on Docker and waiting to connect. Next, let's go ahead and add the dependency into our application. So in here, I am in Postgres CDBC driver documentation, and you can see Postgres CDBC driver allow Java program to connect to a Postgres database using standard database independent server code and so down. So you can see this is a simple query of using statement and resource set, and you need to type the query very specific in here. But because we using Data GPA dependency, so we don't need to create a statement like this. Next, let's go to the Data GPA. Data GPA is a part of Data family, and on the left hand side, you can see it has CDBC, LDAP, MongoDB, Redis, or Elasticsearch here. And it's made easy to implement CBA, stand for Java Persistent API, repositories, and it's made easy to build sync power application that use data asset technology. And you can see you can even use custom finder or query by symbol, and Sync will write the query for you. And basically, when we using Data GPA, it will map our model into the database, and also it's able to generate the SQL query for us based on the method name when we element CPA repository, which I will show to you later on. So Data GPA is very powerful. Go back to IntelliJ, open the pom.xml file, and under starter web dependency. So to add the dependency, you can go to string initializer and to Maven, and then click on add dependency and type Postgres driver in here. And the second one is string data GPA. Click on explore, and now simply do copy the dependency in here. Go back to the IntelliJ and paste it in here, and then reload again. So whenever you have change in the POM XML, you need to reload the Maven request to get the update. So okay, cool. Now we have the Postgres database is running, and also we already add Postgres CDBC driver and Data CPA dependency in our application. And the third one we need to do is need to have data source configuration within our application in here. Next, let's go to data source configuration to perform the connection to our database. Within IntelliJ, click on application.yaml file here. For you, it may be application.property. You can use property file, or you can using YAML file. This is the configuration for our application in here. You can see we have the server, port, and the name. And the important one is data source configuration in here. You need to provide the URL. In this case is CDBC Postgres, and the host is localhost and the port is 5432, and the customer is the database name. And then if we also have the username, password, and under CBA we have the Hibernate in here, and DDL02 is create drop. For create, it will create table when we start and running application, and the drop will be performed when we stop or shut down the application. For the repetitive, I use direct process direct in here, and also I would like to easy see the display SQL for the format. And the last one, if we want to see the SQL query in the log file, let's run the application to see that we can connect or not. Oh, okay. It's a run fail because database customer does not exist. What we are going to do is, so go back PC admin in here, and in the database, I would like to create database customer save. So you can see here now we have the customer database. Let's go back to IntelliJ, create run again. So you can see here in the log file some cache started about 8080. We have some log from Zinedata CBA in here. We don't have any error in here. Okay, cool. Now our application already established the connection to the database. So right now our application already established the connection to the database. And before we go to customer repository in here, we have another job to be done is create a customer entity so that we can map the customer into the database to create a table so that we can element this customer repository. So within IntelliJ, let's close this one and then open the customer in here. And to able to create a table to our database, we have to mark the annotation is table. And the next one is entity in here. And so we need also have the ID in here, represent the primary key, and also generate value. And the strategy is identity in here. So that whenever a new record of customer is insert to our database, and this is pretty much basically configuration to able map our customer entity to the database. So let's run again. And so you can see in here, if we have create table customer in here, if we have the ID, address, email, the name, and the primary key is ID in here. Go back to the browser, under customer database, open schema. If I open table, so as you can see here, we also have the customer table in here, which is mapped by customer entity from our application, and the column in here. So you can see we also have the ID, address, email, and the name as well. So now we almost done. We have the project database, dependency, data source configuration, and also we have the customer entity in the database. Let's go to the last one is we will create a customer repository to fulfill entire layer of this architecture. So go back to IntelliJ and close this, and under customer package I would like to create a class is customer repository, and this will be the interface. And then to element CPA repository, just follow is extend CPA repository in here, and it's required for the type of object. In this case is customer, and also we need to provide the type of the ID is long. So all the things in here we are done. We already set up the controller service and also repository layer, and we also have the database is running. Now it's the time to integrate all of this and start send the API request to our application. So in here, because in the database we don't have any customer yet, then I would like to start with the post request in here to create a new customer. Let's go back to the IntelliJ. I'm missing something. Let's add the repository in here. And then we also inject this customer repository into customer service private final customer repository, and then add it to the constructor. What are we going to do is create a method in here. So let's type public void create customer. Then for the request body, I would like to create customer request. Then we will create a record first, and inside this record we also have the name and email, and the last one is address. So okay, cool. Let's go back to the customer controller. Then I would like to return customer service. Then also create customer. On the method, I would like to add for the post mapping, and then simply create a method inside the customer service. And the business logic I would like to type is customer dot create, and inside it create customer request dot name. Then also for email, and the last one is address in here. And then I would like to create a method within the customer, and the return type is customer in this case, and also for the string name, email, and the address, and the return type is must be new customer, and inside it just pass the name, email, and the address in here. So okay, I think everything look fine. Go back to the customer service, and then I simply attach to this variable, and then customer repository dot save our customer. And we have one related problem in here. So sorry, this will not return, but in here we can have some log file. Let's add, and you need to have uh, the lumbook in here, SJ4J, and this will come from lumbook. And then under React customer method, let's add some log info. That's receive create new customer. So okay, cool. Let's rerun application again. And for the test API, I use Postman in here. And let's try change the URL a little bit. HTTP localhost, and the port is 8080. Remember, the path will be API v1 customers, and then I would like to change it to post request, and in the body I would like to click on raw and the JSON here. In the request body it will be name, and this case is Sam, and the email is for example Sam gmail.com. The address in here from US. Okay, let's go back to the IntelliJ. In the parameter in here, I would like to have annotation is request body in here to able map our request to this customer request object in here, and click on send. So you can see here the status code is 200 in here to the IntelliJ, and we create a new customer request in here, and then it insert new customer into the database via the SQL query. In here you can see insert into the customer, and the value is it took from this object in here. So now we already have one customer in the database. The next request I would like to do is create a get mapping so that we can fetch all the customer from our database. Go back to the Postman, and the first thing I would like to do is we need to send a post request to create new customer. This is because we are using CBA with Hibernate with DDL02 is create drop in here. So it means that it will drop all the data when we stop the application. Go back to the Postman again, then click on the send. So we receive 200 status code in here. Now if I go to the get request, click on send. So we also receive 200 status code in here when we fetch the data is Leon in here. If I go back to the PC admin, and in here customer table, right click, and I would like to see all the row in here. We have one customer database we created before, so that's why the result is Leon in here. Go back to the IntelliJ. So you can see here, this is the first query we created a new customer, and then this is the select query. We fetch the customer from the database. So right now we already elemented the customer for the get and post request in here. The next one we are going to do is implement the put request in here to make our customer have the update functionality. So within IntelliJ, let's go customer controller. I would like to create a method with update customer, and then I would like to have long ID and string email. Also, oops, my mistake. This would be name, and this one will be email, and the last is address. And I need to have a put mapping, and I would like to have the path is the ID in here, and also I would like to have the path variable. The value also is ID, and for the name, email, and address, it would be request param. And then simply return customer service update customer, and we pass the ID, the name, email, and address. Then create a method, and in here we need to have some business logic to do in here. We need to update the customer, right? Then the first thing I would like to do is we need to find the customer, and in this case we will find by ID, and we paste the ID in here. Let's have a name is customer by ID. We just simply get customer. We would have customer set. We need to set name and pass name in here, and also the email, and then the address. So let's change a little bit. set email, set address. Okay, cool. The next thing we would like to do is customer repository save, and we would like to save customer again. Let's go. Where is the problem? Oh, sorry, this will not is return, and I would like to have some log info in here. Okay, we run again. Go to the Postman, click on send to a new customer, and then get it back. And we have the customer is Sam and the ID is 1. So let's update the same information in here. Go to put update request, and the customer we want to update is the ID is 1, and the name we want to update is uh, Sam Hardy, and the email is sam123 gmail.com, and the address is Germany. Click on send, and in the get request in here, click on send again. So now we successfully put mapping to update the information of the customer. But in here we have one issue. In here, the name, email, and the address must always present on the path. If we're missing one of them, the request will fail. Let me show you. If I remove the address and also the email and click send, just for now we update back to same value. Click on send. So we receive the batch request in here. Back to the IntelliJ, and you can see here we have the missing servlet request parameter exception, and the message is the parameter email is not present in here, and it will stop the request in the customer controller in here. And to fix this, what we are going to do is very straightforward. In the request param, it has the attribute is required, and the default value is true. Let's change to font. Required font also for the email and the address. And rerun again. Back to the Postman and create a customer. Then get back. And in this time we update to Sam Hardy again. Click on send, and in the get request, click on send. So now the issue no value present is resolved, but in the request it returned for us the email and the address is null value. In here, receive update of the request ID 1 with the name is Sam Hardy, and the email and the address is null. This is because in the request we just only pass the name only. So then the default value when the request goes to the constructor in here, the email and the address will be null. To handle this, we need to do is go to the update customer. In here, I would like to have some validation in here. If so, the business logic in here, basically I check the name input is non-null value, and the not equal, which is different with the name of the customer from the database. Then we update the name and also for the email and the address as well. And finally, we save the customer. Let's rerun again. Go back to the Postman and Click on post request to create a new customer and get request again. Go to the push update request in here, and the ID I would like to update is 1, and the name is Sam Hardy, and click on send to see we just only update the name only, and get again. So you can see we successfully update the name. Let's do for the email. I would like to change it to email, and the email of Sam is sam123@gmail.com. Click on send and get it back. So we also update the email as well. Let's do for the address, and in here the address is changed to Germany. Click on send and get again. So we also update the address as well is Germany. Now let's update all the field in here. Go back to the put request, and the name is Sam. The email is sam@gmail.com, and the address is US. Send and get again. So you can see that you can update specific field you want, or also you can update all of the field in here. So now the customer has the flexibility to update any attribute or on the field of the customer. So right here we already elemented the guest, post, put, request in here. Next, let's go to the last one is delete request. Within IntelliJ, what we are going to do is create a delete method, public void delete customer, and we pass the ID in here, and then customer service dot delete customer, and we also pass the ID in here. And on the method we need to add annotation delete mapping, and the path is ID, and in the parameter we also need to have path variable, and the value is also ID. And let's create a method. Now customer repository, and in the repository we have the method is exit by ID, and attach this to variable is exit. Then simply if this customer does not exist in the database, then we will throw the exception in here. Throw runtime exception, and the message is customer. I would like to have string format in here. Then customer with ID does not exist, and then we pass the ID in here. If that's not the case, we just simply delete by ID. To able receive the message response of the exception in here, let's go to application.yaml, and under server we need to have error in here, and include message is always. Okay, cool. Then go to the controller. I would like to add some log in here. Also receive delete customer with ID. Okay, restart again. Go to the Postman and simply create new customer, and then get the customer back. So right now we have one customer with ID is 1. Now if I go to the delete request and I would like to delete customer number 5, this will throw the error for us. Click on send. So you can see here we receive the message response. His customer with ID 5 does not exist. Let's change it to 1 and click on send. So we have 200 started code in here. And if I go to IntelliJ, and you can see here we have a delete query in here from the customer. And if I go back to the Postman, before we have one customer, and after we delete it, click on send request, click on get request in here. So now you can see that we don't have any customer in the database. Okay, cool. Now we can perform the delete request to our application. So right here, you can see that we already implemented on the functionality of the REST API request, include get mapping, post mapping, put mapping, and the last one is delete mapping in here. Let's go to customer service. In here, in the real world, we don't want just very simple logic in here. Let's apply the real use case to make our application more efficiency. In the Postman, I would like to show to you the case that I mentioned is if I create a new customer and then create another customer and go back to the get request, click on send. So right now we can see that we have two customer has the same email in here. This same gmail.com and same gmail.com. Which is not make sense because the email must be unique of each customer. To handle this case, let's go back to IntelliJ. Before we do more business logic in here, go to customer repository, and in here I would like to have a query optional customer, then find by email, change email here. Currently, we are using Syndata GPA, so this query in here will be created based on the method name. In case you want more specific, then Syndata GPA also provide is query annotation, and inside it, let's type select C form customer where C dot email equal to question mark, and this is GPQL from Syndata GPA. You can choose one of these to perform the query. Let's go back to the customer service, and in here customer repository dot file by email, we pass the email in here, then adjust to variable customer by email, and if customer by email is present, then we will throw new runtime exception, and the message is the email in here unavailable. And then if that's not the case, we just simply create a new customer and then save it. This is the first place, and the second place I want to update. Let's change it to customer, then remove this one, and or else throw, because we need to check is the customer already present in the database or not. New runtime exception, customer with ID does not found. And then this would be the customer. Now we have the customer in here. Let's go to the email validation. Then should follow is customer repository file by email. We pass the email in here, address to customer by email, and then if customer by email is present in the database, then we also throw new runtime exception, and the message is the email unavailable to update. Okay, this is fine now. Let's rerun again. In the Postman, let's create a new customer and get it back. So in this time, we have one customer with email sam@gmail.com. If we try to create another customer with the same email in here, let's see what happened. So you can see here we have the error object in here with the message is the email sam@gmail.com unavailable. If we go to the push request in here and the customer ID is 2 and the email is sam@gmail.com. Click on send. So you can see here the validation chat customer exit is here. Customer with ID 2 the not found. Then create another customer is Larry and then Larry@gmail.com. Click on send. Go to get request and we have two customer in here. And I want to update the email of the customer ID1 to Larry@gmail.com in here. Then go to push request and I would like to update to Larry of customer 1. Click on send. So you can see here the email Larry@gmail.com unavailable to update in here. So now we successfully handle the real use case that we check the email is already present in the database or not. Then we throw the exception and is that not the case, then we allow the business logic still going.
Okay, so far now you know and have the skill of how to build in RESTful API using Spring Boot with a real database running on Docker. And I will put the link repo in the description of this video so that you can check out and follow along. And to be honest, this code takes my effort a lot, but at the end, I am very happy that I can finish this course and give it to you. Let me know your thinking by type the comment below and which content you want to see next. If you like this video, let's click on the subscribe button to support me so that I can continue on my YouTube journey. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.